Hello and welcome. Well, the so-called Grooming Gangs Enquiry, which hasn't even started yet, has been mired in confusing and worrying claims. It's really important that this inquiry goes ahead as soon as possible, and also that the population feel that it has been conducted without fear or favour. Let's have a look at, first of all, what Shabana Mahmood has been saying. So this is a quote from the BBC. The focus of the Grooming Gang Enquiry will not change. Here's a quote from GB News. There will be no hiding place for those who abuse the most vulnerable in our society, nor will those who ignored victims and even covered up what occurred be shielded from the truth. A moment of reckoning will come. So, strong words. Why has the Home Secretary said this? Why has she felt the need to make a statement? This, by the way, was part of a longer statement, which, as I understand it, was given exclusively to GB News, which is in of itself interesting. So this is back to the BBC. Her intervention comes after 3 abuse survivors quit their roles in the inquiry this week over fears that its scope could be widened beyond grooming gangs and concerns about who would chair the inquiry. So it's interesting, isn't it, that its scope could be widened and thereby potentially reducing the depth at which it needs to explore this, widening the inquiry. Same number of words, but not covering some really important things in enough detail. In her resignation letter, survivor Elizabeth, not her real name, said the process felt like a cover-up and had created a toxic environment for survivors. Now, that's the last thing I think that any of us want to hear. There is also frustration around the length of time it has taken to appoint a chairperson, with some seeing this as a delay tactic because of fears of what might be exposed. And it might not be a delay tactic, but you can understand why people might jump to that conclusion, because things just haven't felt quite right about this inquiry. And some people, for whatever reason, didn't seem to be too keen for it to go ahead. Survivors have raised concerns about the suitability of the candidates shortlisted to chair the inquiry, including Annie Hudson, a former senior social worker, and Jim Gamble, a former deputy chief constable. Now, I don't know these people at all, and maybe they are suitable in terms of skill and mindset. However, you can sort of see why the fact that they're linked to the police and linked to social work could cause the survivors and families to worry. They are essentially saying, but they were part of the problem, and if these people are connected and they're leading the inquiry, then how do we know it will be done without fear or favour? Fiona Goddard, who was abused by gangs while living in a Bradford children's home, said policing and social work services had contributed most to the cover-up of the national mass rape and trafficking of children. So there we see there why people would worry about who was chairing. Again, despite the fact that the individuals themselves may, of course, be absolutely moral and ethical, I think it is important that there is no doubt that things are done to the letter of the law, and again without bias. Another survivor, Ellie Reynolds, suggested having establishment insiders representing the very systems that failed us as potential chairs was a conflict of interest. Now, why were they thought of? Is it because simply that, well, they sort of know the system, so they know how to look at it critically? They know where people may try and pull the wool, where things could be hidden? Or is it that, well, they might look at things slightly more favourably? Again, I'm not suggesting that is the case, but I am suggesting that one can see why these people, the survivors, would really worry about who was appointed. So it does seem it has to be someone without that type of connection. And now what we'll do is we'll actually listen to Ellie Reynolds.
That serious on appointing a chair that was actually going to succeed in this inquiry, they would not have picked a former police officer or a former social worker, because they are two of the main authorities that have failed young girls and boys in the past. It should have been a judge. It should have been somebody that was completely impartial, non-biased. I do not believe the Home Office or the government for 1 second, and I think everything that they say is very scripted and very manipulative for people to think that, you know, they're revolutionary, and they're really not.
It is very difficult to get away from the government, this leadership team, not sounding scripted about a lot of things. And this, again, is the Home Secretary, a quote from GB News. Firstly, this inquiry is not and will never be watered down on my watch. Its scope will not change, and nor will its intent. It will be robust and rigorous. It will direct and oversee local investigations with the power to compel witnesses and summon evidence. And this is encouraging to hear. And I think Shabana Mahmood is not daft. She knows she needs to be saying this. And once again, I think it is important for all of us to note how public opinion, public pressure, when brought to bear properly, legally, keeping within the bounds of the law, can make a huge difference. So, let's go here.
What is your reaction to that Shabana Mahmood statement?
I suppose there's nothing necessarily wrong with what she said. For me, it's a complete lack of recognition that the safeguarding minister publicly called me a liar today. There's no apology, there's no recognition. This woman is supposed to represent women and children's safety, and she has nationally called a grooming gang victim a liar, knowing that I'm not a liar either, and that I have the emails and the texts. I think for me to take anything seriously that any government official has to say, there needs to be an apology for what I have been put through today.
Just outline, to outline for my viewers and listeners, Fiona, if that's okay. So you're talking about Jess Phillips there, aren't you?
Yes.
Now I'm going to play a little clip of her in the House of Commons, which is this, and then we'll talk off the back of it, all right?
I have said that 1,000,000 times from this dispatch box, and yet the same thing gets peddled again and again.
So that was a very energised Jess Phillips in the House of Commons today. Could you outline to my viewers and listeners what she accused you of specifically, please, Fiona?
So in my resignation letter, I made public about the attempts to widen the scope and also how the inquiry would be conducted, extending it from localities to regions. She said that them claims were categorically untrue, even though she was aware of them because of personal text I'd sent to her outlining what we were being asked, and her response back to me was that she knew that the question was being asked and that she couldn't make the decision without it being consulted on. So she called me a liar while she knew the truth.
And you then took to social media today, and I think we're witnessing a little bit of that on the screen now. You then published actually an email and what appeared to me to be a phone message or something like that anyway,
yes,
of you communicating directly with her about that. So you basically... Well, I mean, I don't want to use the word liar on this show for various different legal reasons, but I mean, it would appear that she was not being entirely honest.
Yes, no, she was not. And I think it's quite concerning that she would rather try and damage the character of a survivor than take some responsibility herself.
It's all very worrying, very concerning, and it's not a good look, to put it mildly. Also interesting how Jess Phillips, you could see in that clip that was played by GB News, you had the anger, which is a sort of go-to for a few of the Labour leadership team. And I just wonder about that. What's the anger about? Is it even slightly performative in nature? I think actually she worked herself up into genuine anger, but what is it about? Is it about being challenged? Is it about the pressure she finds herself under? And they are all capable of the performance art of speaking with anger and also speaking with concern. But she's not always angry. Let's just remind ourselves about Jess not being angry.
Continue to be swept under the carpet.
What I say to the honourable member is I think everyone should want not just to get to the truth about past failures, but also to make sure that we make the changes to protect children for the future as well. That includes changes in social services, it includes changes in policing and the police operation that I hope that she would welcome to take action to...
Uh-oh. Camera's on. Let's try and get the face into the correct expression for the seriousness of what is being discussed and said here.
Put perpetrators behind bars, and also the action to gather...
Yep, the camera was on.
...proper ethnicity data, which simply has not been gathered properly before, and where Louise Casey's report...
Yeah, you're sort of getting it now. That's kind of the right expression. So... And she's not alone with that stuff. But what I've been reading and what I've been listening to, for me at least, it just leaves a sour taste in the mouth. And I'll finish off by saying what I said earlier. This has got to be done without fear or favour. The scrutiny that already was on this inquiry, again, hasn't started yet, was intense enough. And now it's probably a little bit fever pitch. So if there is good to come out of it, and I say good to come out of it because at the moment it doesn't look good at all, not in the slightest, then the good that can come out of it is that we actually do have a proper, in-depth, focused, unbiased, without fear of favour inquiry, and that the results of which lead to the action that most people in the country would like to see. In essence, the perpetrators are brought to justice, and we understand why and how this happened, and we find ways, the recommendations to ensure that nothing like this happens ever again.